And what we're really seeing is that base is starting to catch up to the TVL that Morpho has on Ethereum. I think at this moment there's 3.9 billion on Ethereum and 1.8, 1.9 on base. So that's almost half. And
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Wagmi TV. We have an important episode for you. It's an update on one of our favorite projects, Morpho. We have some updates on some of the fundamentals as well as the charts. So we're going to dive right into it, share some updated news and some volume statistics and get into it. Again, this is not financial advice, entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research, but you'll see that we are very fond of this project. So let's dive in here really quickly. We're going to share a quick update on where the Bitcoin back loans stand. This was the Coinbase and Morpho partnership that started back in just April of this year, and it's officially surpassed $1 billion in outstanding loans in terms of volume. And so what they have actually noticed, one of kind of the really surprising components of this partnership is that folks are borrowing a lot close to that $1 million cap. They've kind of noticed that trend increasing over time. And so what they're actually planning to do is bump that cap from $1 million to $5 million in the coming weeks. So that volume from April to now that's reached over $1 billion is with a $1 million limit per loan. So now if you kind of extrapolate the same kind of demand with a $5 million limit with those folks that would have borrowed $5 million and can now do that, I think that's a big uplift to the amount of volume pace that we could see in the velocity on that. And what's also been really interesting is that we've seen just a very, very solid partnership between Morpho and Coinbase. It seems like their teams align really, really well. They're on kind of the same page in terms of what they view this as. And I think like whenever we're talking about crypto fundamentals and, a market opportunity, it's always good to understand, hey, what's like the total addressable market for something like this? And really their projection, right? I mean, Coinbase is a public company. They can't really just project stuff without putting any sort of study or reasoning behind it. But basically their teams are thinking, hey, this sort of kind of crypto asset-based lending industry is going to reach $1.3 trillion in total volume by 2030. And obviously Morpho and Coinbase are the first movers on this. They're the first to do it. And we're seeing other folks kind of try to copy it. But obviously with the backing of an institution like Coinbase, and then obviously the backing of the technology with something like Morpho, it's become a really, really powerful lending vehicle in crypto. And even if they get a portion of this 1.3 trillion, or even if it gets close to that by 2030, they're going to have a large percentage of that. So it's looking more and more bullish for Morpho as well as Coinbase, since they're going to get to lead out on the crypto lending and asset-based lending industry. So that's kind of the big update in terms of how the fundamentals are changing. The volume cap is going to be, the borrowing cap is going to go up from 1 to 5 million. And we're going to see that that volume just continue to increase. And we've kind of officially surpassed 1 billion, which is huge. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ev to kind of talk some more of the on-chain metrics.
yeah, let's do it. So let's hop into DeFi Llama. We're always in this site and monitoring essentially what protocols are really gaining against some of the other ones on base. But, as you can see, and we've covered this plenty of times, Morpho is that leader on base. It is at 1.9 billion in TVL at the moment, sitting on top of Aave, who's, at 1.1. But we've seen, a significant increase in the last month. So, yeah, 13% gain by Morpho. And I think the more interesting thing to look at here is seeing how the loans on Coinbase are affecting or bringing in TVL into Morpho. So right here in pink, we've got Morpho's TVL for Ethereum. And then in this purplish blue, we have it for Base. And what we're really seeing is that Base is starting to catch up to the TVL that Morpho has on Ethereum. I think at this moment there's 3.9 billion on Ethereum and 1.8, 1.9 on Base. So that's almost half, and we're starting to see a really healthy, steady increase in the TVL and Base. So this is something that we've been covering, but man, it just continues to have that upward, up into the right movement that we love to see. So yeah, super exciting there. I think the big elephant in the room that nobody talks about with this stuff is Aave. Aave is that lender in crypto that has easily the most TVL. And so you can see, they're up at around 30 billion with only, 1 billion in base TVL. And so I think the difference here, if you're looking at the strategy of these two protocols, is that Aave has a significant presence on Ethereum. They're trying to build out their base brand, but they're not necessarily as successful as Morpho, who has a significant portion of their TVL and of their growth really within base. So I think that's why we're so bullish on Morpho here, is because they're really taking base as potentially that number one chain that they want to be attracting people to, or maybe it's 1A, 1B between Ethereum and base, but I think it's fantastic growth like we've covered in previous weeks, and it's just going to keep growing with potentially these loans going from 1 million to 5 million.
Yeah, I love that. I think we should maybe take a quick look at the chart as well. I know we've talked about tokenomics in the past, so definitely something that we want to dig into here. So generally speaking, we're seeing this essentially go along with some of the charts that we were seeing on DeFi Llama. Obviously, we had a huge run up with the rest of crypto early on in its life here with Morpho. We've seen it since come back down and start to kind of have a steady churn upwards, which is always good to see. From the bullish perspective, right, obviously it's been a little bit difficult to break above this 246-ish on a daily perspective, on a daily close perspective. So that's really the line in the sand that we're trying to get up and above. We do have this essentially bullish trend line, right? So to keep this churn upwards, we want to make sure we continue to hold this. So we did come down and touch that. And also, if you actually take the Fibonacci levels, which is something we often look at as well, from the most recent low to the most recent high, we can actually see that we essentially came down and kissed that as well. So this was a really critical level that we saw here earlier at the end of last week, Thursday and Friday, in that $62, $63 range. So those are the things that we want to see from a bullish perspective. We want to see it hold this trend line. And if we wanted to get even more technical, we really want to make sure that we hold this $54-ish level. So that's what we're really looking at from the bullish perspective. And the next stop would be that resistance that we've been up against, that $2.45 level. The bearish side of things, we want to make sure we cover that as well. So what we're seeing here is a potential downturn, and then potentially this could be a bear flag. So again, what we want to make sure is we don't break, at the very worst, this trend line. If we do, obviously that next level is this green line, $1.09, where we'd be looking to pick up some more Morpho from this perspective. The only other thing that I saw on this from the bearish side was potential head and shoulders here that we did break down and confirm from. So again, that doesn't mean that this has to completely fill out. If it did, right, the measured move for this would essentially be down, I would assume down just a little bit lower than this green line. So that's, again, where we'd be looking to really pick up a pretty sizable position from a trading perspective. Again, this is all short term. I think we talked a lot about the fundamentals and why we're bullish on Morpho in general. I think we talk about it all the time, right? It's all going to kind of depend on what Bitcoin does and the rest of the crypto market does. But that's just what we're seeing from the chart perspective. And so hopefully the fundamentals can take over and take this thing to the next level. So those are the areas we're watching.
And I think one thing I wanted to add on to that, because you called out the token unlocks, is earlier this summer we covered essentially the aggressive token unlocks that were going to be happening for Morpho. And we've really hit the end of that super aggressive portion. We've got probably I would say 3 to 4 months here where there's no further unlocks for the token. And then we continue a more gradual unlock schedule. But at the moment, we've gotten through the worst of the unlocks. So I think in that sense, like you called out, there are some bullish points to the token at the moment.
Gotta love it.
That's awesome. Thanks for calling that out, guys, and great job pointing out the bullish and bearish sides of things. And hopefully this was helpful to you all. Hope you found it entertaining as well. I think it's always important to look at both the fundamentals and also the charts, right? So I think we have a really strong underlying fundamental basis here, and then that's going to dictate a lot of what the chart does, and obviously what Bitcoin does as well. So awesome. Obviously, post in the comments. Like, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Like, maybe we could always be missing something. We'd love to hear your perspective. And like, comment, subscribe if you guys found this helpful or interesting. But again, not financial advice. Do your own research. But until next week, Wagmi.